Hey, what's up everyone? So today we're going to talk about the food pyramid. And we're going to talk about the nutritional balancing food pyramid and how it relates and how it doesn't relate to the standard government issue food pyramid. Now I'm sure you're all familiar with the standard government issued, FDA approved pyramid. It's going to be 8 to 10 servings of carbohydrates. Fruits and vegetables are going to be the second layer. I think it's like 3 or 4 servings for fruits and vegetables, followed by nuts, beans, meat, dairy, and then of course trying to limit sweets of any kind. Now the nutritional balancing food pyramid is going to be much different. Okay, 70%. Now one thing you have to realize is that this is by servings. Okay, this is by volume. Okay, we don't really go by servings because some people need more food than others. Let's be honest here. So we try to go by volume. Now the base is going to be 70% cooked vegetables. Obviously it's 70% by volume because you're not going to get many calories from cooked vegetables, obviously. Alright, you don't get, when you eat cooked broccoli for example or something like that, you're not going to get many calories. And it'd be pretty much impossible to get 70% of your calories from cooked vegetables. Okay, so mostly cooked vegetables. Now we like people to eat cooked vegetables preferably 3 times a day. One meal would be root vegetables, one meal would be leafy greens, and then the other meal would be based around like broccoli, cruciferous vegetables. Okay, so then 8%, this is about 8 to 10% is going to be whole grains. Now one thing you have to realize is that not all whole grains are created equal. The best whole grain that we actually recommend is blue corn. That's a very special food actually. It's the reason why it's a blue is because it has the same antioxidants as blueberries. It's very non-hybridized. It also has a special form of selenium that's very important today. And our whole grains limit all wheat. Okay, it's very important to realize that. We don't want anyone eating wheat today. Wheat is very hybridized and it's very irritating food today. Now gluten is kind of another story. Some people, if their digestion is good, they can handle a little bit of gluten. Some barley, some rye bread, rye crackers. And also, oatmeal is also a good food. Alright, so then 15% of it is going to be animal protein. Now, my next video I'll talk about the concept of slow oxidation, fast oxidation, and how it relates, because some people need a little more protein, some people need a little more fat. But for now it's important that you should probably get animal protein at least twice a day. Now animal protein is specific. Now one thing to keep in mind, specifically animal protein. Now this can also be eggs, which are also a good source of food. But no matter what anyone tells you, we find that the bodies, they need animal protein. You do get protein from grains and other things, but you don't get near the amount of nutrients. Number one is actually zinc. Okay, zinc is very deficient in the food supply, and if you're not eating meat, you're going to be getting even less zinc. Also, one of the problems is, B vitamins, and it's also a very young food that people just seem to need meat, okay? Now, obviously not all meat is created equal. We don't want people to eat pig products, actually. Pig is somewhat irritating to people's intestinal tracts. It also has a lot of parasites. Now some of these parasites, no matter how much you cook the food, even if it's cured bacon and you cook it thoroughly, these parasites can still survive, and actually a lot of brain fog is caused by parasites. 3 to 4 servings a week is okay for nuts and beans. Now keep in mind with nuts, we prefer roasted nuts because they're easier to digest. It's also more young, and we also prefer nut butters that are roasted. So for instance, the best way in my opinion to eat nuts would be roasted almond butter. Just simply, it's the most digestible. The fact that it's in a butter form, it's already kind of chewed for you. A lot of people don't chew their food properly. And it's also just easier to digest in the butter form. And then on top of that, the almond has been roasted, which also enhances digestibility. Cooking food to enhance digestibility is a very important concept. That's why we recommend, you'll notice, cooked vegetables, not raw vegetables, okay? Then also, okay, for most people, if you can't tolerate it, it's okay to limit it, at least for the first maybe. Some people it takes up to a year before they can eat raw dairy, and it's not a completely necessary food, but we find that once the digestion improves, people do find off of about 4 to 6 ounces of raw dairy. Now it's important that it's raw or at least organic. Most commercial dairy products are simply crap. They've been homogenized and pasteurized. The cows aren't very healthy. I'll make another video at some point about pasteurization, homogenization of milk. But it's important to know that you want raw milk. It's it's a lot more expensive, but it's worth it, especially if you're going to eat dairy. And also, it's important to realize that goat milk is actually better than cow's milk if you can get hold of it. The reason why goat's milk is better is because it doesn't have casein in it. It's more compatible with the human digestive system. A cow is a very large animal, and its milk's not really designed for human consumption, whereas a goat's is more compatible with the human biological system. All right, and then we're going to try to limit all, in nutritional balancing science, we're going to limit all refined grains, okay? No white rice, no wheat, any refined wheat product, any refined grain product, period. We don't want you eating that stuff, okay? Also, no sugar. Now, a lot of people have a hard time with this concept, but in the optimum diet that we recommend, we don't want people to eat fruit. Okay, fruit is mostly sugar. It does have some vitamins and fiber in it, but one thing you have to realize is it's very hybridized. The fruits that we grow today never really existed in nature for the most part, a lot of them. Of course some of them did, but a lot of them have been very hybridized. And also they have a toxic form of potassium. And I know this sounds, a lot of you have never heard of this, but what actually happens, and we can see it on hair tests with people that eat a lot of fruit, is that eventually at some point they will expel a lot of potassium, and this is a toxic form of potassium that's not inherent in fruit itself, but what happens is that even organic fruit today is sprayed with phosphate fertilizers. And what happens is when they spray these fruit with fertilizer, even when they grow them organically, that the fruits will actually, when you spray the fruit with this fertilizer, it converts it to a toxic form of potassium. They use the fertilizer in vegetables too, but we find that with vegetables, for some reason or another, it's an inherent quality of vegetables that they convert the potassium to more bioavailable form. So that's one reason. Also sugar, like I said, they upset the blood sugar balance. Now, if you're going to have fruit, the best fruit would be something like maybe a few blueberries for dessert or something like that. The worst is like large citrusy fruit, like oranges. I know, it sounds weird, but we find that for optimum health today, you need to avoid or at least limit fruit as much as possible, and that includes fruit juice. Fruit juice is not a healthy food. Most of the vitamin C oxidizes out of it the minute you open it. It's very concentrated and sugary. It's just sugary as eating a Sprite. Drinking orange juice isn't much better for you than drinking Sprite. I'm sorry to tell you that, guys. But it's a fact that we have to realize, okay? Now, you'll notice that the biggest difference with the government food pyramid is the fact they don't tell you what kind, okay? For instance, carbohydrates, they just say carbohydrates, okay? You don't want any refined grains, and you don't want to eat wheat. That's most importantly. And also, things like the best grains we recommend are blue corn and brown rice. Those are probably the two best. Blue corn's number one, followed by brown rice, okay? And then, quinoa is also good, amaranth. And then also, like I said, the gluten-containing grains are also good if your digestion can handle it. A little bit of oatmeal ain't gonna kill you. A little bit of rye or barley. Unless you get bloating and problems from it, then you gotta eliminate all gluten, at least for a while, until you can tolerate it better. And then also with vegetables, we don't like people to eat nightshade vegetables, okay? Nightshades are actually botanically fruits. Most people don't realize this. For instance, tomatoes, okra, squash, cucumbers, these are all actually fruit. They have seeds, and they're actually ovaries of the plant. So in macrobiotic terms, you'll remember that I made a video earlier about yin and yang, and how it relates to nutritional balancing. And fruit's very yin. And nightshades also have a certain toxin called solanine in it. Solanine. And then what that does is it irritates your intestinal tract somewhat, and also can tend to cause inflammation. So a lot of people actually get arthritis, and they notice that their arthritis, although there are many causes of arthritis, most people do notice that their arthritic symptoms kind of go away when they eliminate those things. Also, for instance, with meat and dairy, it doesn't tell you what kind of meat or what kind of dairy. Raw dairy is much, much more preferable. And then with meat, you should avoid all pig products. And also, beef is also a somewhat irritating food today, sadly. Beef has been very hybridized, and we actually try to limit beef intake. The best red meat you can eat is lamb. Bison's also pretty good. Wild game. Those are all good, much better red meats than beef. And if you're going to eat beef, have it only 2 to 3 times a week, and try to make sure it's grass-fed and preferably like grass raised. Because you'll notice one thing that happens with beef is that it'll be pasture raised, but it'll be grain finished. Okay, you want to try to get grass finish as well. It'll be more expensive, but it's worth it. And like I said, lamb's actually the best red meat you can eat. So if you can, try to substitute most of your beef with lamb. Okay, so that's just the overview of the food pyramid, what we use, how it compares to the government food pyramid. And then I'm going to talk about, tomorrow I'll talk about the two different diets that we actually recommend. Because we actually recommend two different diets for two different types of people. People are either in slow oxidation or fast oxidation, and I'll tell you guys what those things mean. And I'll tell you guys, you know, how the diet differs a little bit. Now, you have to keep in mind that the diet is mostly the same for these two things. Alright, so I hope to talk to you guys later, and peace out.